Hey guys, so today I'm trying something new. I've been really digging into astrology. I've been actually taking a look at Hellenistic astrology. There's a guy who's been pulling a lot of really old, I guess, archaeological papers basically from a long time ago. From the Hellenistic period, he's been doing a lot of translations. He's been compiling these translations into a book. This hasn't been done before because the translations were just basically nobody had ever actually gone and bothered to go to translate the astrological paperwork from those time periods. They translated other aspects of it, but this guy actually decided to do translations of astrological stuff. So I've been really excited to see. There's a book that he's compiled. It's like $170, so I'm like kind of waiting to get some money together for it because I would love to get into Hellenistic astrology. They deal. It kind of works a little bit differently than what we call, I guess, modern astrology, which is it leans a little bit more on to the day-to-day kind of stuff, which I'm still interested in, but Hellenistic seems to be a little bit more holistic, where it addresses lots of aspects of your life, like life purpose, so like paths. Anyways, what I'm doing is I'm sticking to Taurus. So if you're not a Taurus astrologically, stay tuned. It might still just be interesting to know planetary things that are going on. If you have any Taurian friends in your life, I'm a Taurus. It's why I chose to do this chart first, because it kind of helps me get more familiar with this process. And since I know a little bit about Taurians and how we work, I figured it would kind of take a little bit of the burden off of me for getting into the explanations of things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull 5 cards because I'm taking this short video. I didn't want to make it too long. I'm taking this video to cover 5 astrological events that are happening in October. It just takes us all the way to around the 19th of October. Because I'm not covering this event that's happening on the 19th, I'm covering all the events that happened before this. So basically, it'll get you from beginning of October to a little bit before the 19th. So it should cover most things to get you to that point where, at that point, hopefully I'll have another video ready before the 19th hits to cover this. That just gives me some time to kind of study some more and get everything going. So I'm going to pull 5 cards for each of the 5 events that I'm going to kind of talk about. And each one of the 5 cards is going to just kind of offer either suggestions or tips, or maybe just like a clue into maybe some things that might be happening. So I don't normally flip cards in my medicine deck because I don't typically work with reversals. But I figured, given astrology, there's a lot more squares and trinos and things like that. I figured I would give the cards an opportunity to reflect some of the things that sometimes get delayed, turned upside down, that sort of thing, the conflict that can happen. So I don't know if you've done or studied astrology, but there's a few terms I want to just get to first before I start. I'm just learning all of this, so bear with me. There's still some things I might kind of blank out on. But basically, you're going to hear me mention things like houses and things like squares. I'm trying to think, is there anything else here that might be... And there are some signs I guess I'll mention too, but they're all, I mean, if you're familiar with astrological signs, you'll know that part. The houses, there are 12 houses. Each of the different houses represents, basically you could think of as different departments in your life, that manage all, I mean, it's not as, I guess you could say, it's not trying to cover every infinite kind of thing that could ever come up in your life, but it is trying to manage and break things down into more basic understandings of things. And it hopes to cover anything that will come up for you. So, like I said, 5 cards I'm going to get into. So just 1 second, let me kind of get grounded. I'm going to pull some clarifier cards just in case, so I can have it ready beforehand. I'm going to flip these two, so... These are just kind of there in case I need them. Okay. So, first event here I'm looking at is October 2nd. So October 2nd. Now keep in mind, if I mention that there's a square, it mentions, if you look at it as like a zodiac, you know, the actual circle, like on a chart and everything, what a square means is, say a certain planet or identity or figure is here, and there's another identity like over here, and you can see that like they're like a 90-degree angle apart from each other on the circle, then they call that a square. And basically that just means that these two figures are kind of in connection to each other, and if they are really opposing energies, like say really managing and then like really freeing, basically it means that on those days you generally want to probably be really, really careful and maybe even try not to make big decisions on those days until you've really got a grasp on kind of what kind of compromises are necessary. It may require some, you know, negotiation between those two conflicting kind of concepts for you to be able to make a wise decision in a situation on those days. It requires a lot of kind of searching and digging before you get there. So generally recommended not to do big decisions on those days unless absolutely necessary. Try to get them done before, try to get them done after, if possible. So I've got some notes here. So October 2, Mercury's in Libra in the 6th house, makes a square to Pluto in Capricorn in the 9th house. So the 6th house represents generally your work habits, your work ethic, your job. This could be any kind of service you do, any kind of daily work, chores, basically anything you could think of that's to do with work. The 9th house is more like, I guess you could say, the search for a meaning, the search for understanding in a very abstract sense. Not so much just basic memorization of fact, but more like deep understanding and meaning and application of things. You know, the universe, the great systems of things, and understanding your roles and things. So this suggests, in general, a lot of study time, maybe book time. Maybe if you're trying to put together a project, this is time to do your research, time to read up on things, and to prepare for it. Also suggests a good time to start figuring out really good ways of grounding your values, your deep values, like maybe spiritual values, philosophical values, ethical values, moral values, trying to ground those values in actual physical action, measurable things, concrete steps you can take. The really big question is going to be what to do with your time. So I pulled the first card here. Oh, I got it. So the hummingbird. So what to do with your time? The hummingbird is, I think, a suggestion here for Tauruses especially. I know me. Tauruses. Sorry. I have a lot of Capricorn in my chart, so for me, I tend to focus a lot on being very efficient with my time and being practical and breaking it down into, time groups and everything like that. So for me, this suggestion here kind of makes sense. It's a compromise. It's saying if you want to work with this compromise, you're going to have to learn to actually let loose, have some fun, get out to a concert, be creative, buy some paints, that sort of thing. I'm going to take a look at this Lord of Shields because it's reversed. Yeah. See, the problem a lot of times for Tauruses especially is this this intense need to ground things and to control things in a physical way. And this is saying if you don't compromise, there's this kind of risk of your attempts kind of going out of control, and as a result, you'll end up having a lot of bitterness or anger or suffering. Yeah, exactly. It suggests lacking vision or consideration. It can put you in a very shadowy place. So, suggestion there is kind of pay attention to the hummingbird. Try to take on this energy of being really flowy, going with the nature of things as they are, not trying to push back. This is a lesson for you during that time. This is October 2. So next thing here, next event, October 5th. So October 5th is a big thing. Venus will be in retrograde from October 5th to November 15th. So it's a long 40 days. And Venus is Taurus's ruler. So it's a big deal. I don't know if you're into Vulcan, which is kind of a debated figure for Taurians, but I haven't really looked into that planet at this time and where it's at. But Venus does retrogrades 5 times in its cycle, and its cycle is an 8-year cycle. So it's kind of a rare thing. You're not going to get a Venus retrograde very often. In a year's time, you might see it, like I said, it's 5 times every 8 years, so that's not every year. It's maybe, let's see, that's another 3 years divided by 8, so yeah. It's like a year and a couple of months every time you'll have a Venus retrograde. So, and the trippy thing is that it's going retrograde in Scorpio. That's where it's starting out, and it's ending in Libra. So it's starting out in kind of a very intense area, and there's only 5 signs that Venus goes retrograde in, and one of them is Scorpio. It doesn't repeat, it doesn't go retrograde in any other signs aside from those 5 signs. It always repeats on those 5 signs. And Scorpio tends to be the more intense one, just because it's kind of like focusing. Scorpio tends to work with, I'm not saying in terms of like if you're a Scorpio this is what you do, I'm just saying when Venus goes retrograde in Scorpio, it kind of really drives you to observe and kind of reevaluate some areas of your life that you don't typically reevaluate. They're kind of culturally an area that people don't tend to talk about. It talks about death, sex, finances, and taboos. So this is kind of like some deep, shadowy areas of the life that people don't typically go back and look at and shine a light on. So this is really an area that, as a result of this retrograde, it's really going to cause you to take a look at kind of like the reptilian brain, you know, the ego, the fear, the insecurity, the kind of paranoia, and it's really going to push you to really check in with your heart space in order to make better decisions with this, because you're going to not really have that much information to go off of, because this is just I feel like there's a lot of cultural stuff coming up. So, and you know, reptilian brain, it's like a lot of it sometimes it just doesn't make sense because it's just seated in fears, seated in an old way of thinking, and in order to compromise with this energy, you have to learn to check in with your heart, check in with your body, feel those sensations, and help yourself to make those decisions. So I would suggest definitely during this time practicing a lot more, if you don't already, practicing a lot more, 5 minutes a day or something. If you don't have any time in the day, just 5 minutes would make a big difference. Just sitting, trying to slow down your thoughts to the point to where you start to feel the world kind of fade away, quieting down, slowing down. Try and do it sitting up because you don't want to fall asleep. 5 minutes, sit on a pillow or something, slow down. And another thing here, it ends in Libra towards the end of the month, which focuses on relationships, which it's not talking about just romantic relationships. It's talking about all generally, relationships that involve other people. Not relationships with yourself, just relationships with what you can call like the other. I don't know if you've ever heard that. Basically, it means you have to have challenges with reasoning with people outside of yourself, which involves a lot of compromise. It involves dialogue. It involves discussions about the conflict. So this is a pretty significant. I'm trying to think if I have anything else. Yeah, October 10th is kind of related, but we'll get to that in a second. So, all right, so for that, we have the, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so the bat, this is for Taurus, I think. It's just suggesting this is a pretty transformational time. There's a very shamanistic kind of energy to all this. Death of the ego, hang on one sec. Let me check this out real quick before we... Yeah, rebirth. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it's suggesting that this is a time that is going to really require a shedding or a death aspect of some part of some old way of thinking, some old behaviors, that resisting this change will only result in suffering. And I definitely agree with that. As a Taurus, there's aspects that I know that when I've resisted changes, when I've resisted letting go of old ways of thinking, it's just caused even more frustration, even more wastes of time, even more conflict with others, because it would cause me to become irritable or easily frustrated. So definitely, I like that advice. And the other one here, another wisdom card. It's interesting. Oh. Yeah. It's funny, I think all of these cards are reversed, which is weird, but I think it's just a recommendation that in general these are, I wouldn't say consequences, but this is compromise. So without compromise in this area, it's going to result in a lot of distractions. It's going to result in a lot of falseness, where you end up putting on some kind of pretense with others. if you're not checking in with yourself and not letting go of these older problems, these older behaviors, it's going to push you into areas where you're not comfortable because you're still working with some old program. You know what I mean? It's like you're trying to get a job in the modern 2018 and you don't have an email. And, it's going to be really difficult for you to communicate properly with people when you're using old programs. So, that's great, actually. So, next thing, October 8th, we have a new moon in Libra. It's in the 6th house, which is another signal that this month in October is really going to be related to work, services, your home life in terms of the work you have to do at home. Except this time it's got to do with sharing, collaboration. Maybe you'll have conflict with kind of being pushed and pulled back and forth with your desires and your convictions versus the other people in your life. You're going to have to really recognize that other people have other desires, other purposes, that what they want to do with their life may be different. And as a result, because of this kind of deep searching that Taurus is going to be going through this month, you're going to really feel like, oh, you guys are crazy. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And it's going to result in a lot of conflict, a lot of conversations where you're going to feel kind of like, man, like, am I the only person that sees this? But as a result, this is a time for you to really practice before you get into those conversations. Practice, okay, like, I'm at peace with what I'm doing. I know that if I want respect, if I want to be given the time to express what I feel is important, and if that's valued by other people, I also have to return that favor and, zip my lip when other people get their turn to talk and to express what they think is the right thing to do. And unless you feel particularly, abused in some way, to allow that process to take place naturally. If you feel like you got to voice your opinion, they got to voice their opinion, and then all of a sudden, like, you're like, whoa, you guys didn't even listen to anything I said, then I feel like obviously that's an opportunity to speak up, maybe voice how you feel like that might be unfair. I feel like this has to do with work a lot. Obviously, there's still going to be situations where you're collaborating with, coworkers. I feel like this also has to do with artists who might be working in a small group of collaborators where they're working on a project together. There's a lot of compromise involved when you're working on small projects with small groups of people. So I feel like this is definitely trying to address that for Taurians. So let me think. Is there anything else with that? No, I think that's it. Okay, so yeah, fear. Okay. So paranoia, fear, that's what the rabbit talks about. This idea that, sometimes we just kind of get like something just breaks, it's like something just gets snapped. And all of a sudden you might be paranoid about something. All of a sudden you can't do anything because this is happening, so-and-so said this, so-and-so won't let me do this. I'm in a cage, I'm trapped and I can't do anything and I'm cornered. And then you start lashing out, because of this kind of, this sense that you can't move and you're forced to have these kinds of angry responses. Or, I don't know if you, basically, last one, we're doing a lot of shield, it's interesting. Yeah. It does suggest that you're going to feel attacked. There's some paranoia here. Also suggests that this is going to really drain a lot of energy. If you're not willing to compromise, you're going to end up spending a lot of your time in your life just really pushing up against other people's energy. If you learn that, obviously, if you're not in the right workplace, if you're not working with the right people, then you've got to learn to just, finish that job, finish that project, finish out strong, be respectful. Um, it's not always the best idea to just, trash the job and walk out. If you can manage to finish it, and find another group of people that you feel is more of a mutual arrangement where everybody's opinion is used as part of the process. Don't go so far as to just go somewhere where you feel like everybody's going to listen to you, because I know as a Taurus, you would really like that. I mean, obviously, it's great, but this is saying that you got to learn to let go of your fear that if you allow other people to participate, that your life goal is not ever going to be accomplished, that things are going to be delayed or pushed back or given up. This is to do with, if you're in the right place, if you're working with people who really want to further the same things you want to further, then maybe you should consider that there are some other perspectives, some other points of view that may be complementary to what you have and can help develop this, plan, this project, this job, this kind of work that you're doing, and that you'll be better for it. It's a learning experience. I get this feeling again that this month that there's a lot of letting go and learning. So you gotta make room for new stuff, new programs, new helpful, beneficial programs, and you gotta actually learn to critically listen and take advice, and take advice from the people that you trust. Don't just take advice from random strangers who might end up just being critical or manipulative. Take advice from people that you trust with their opinions, that in the past they've proven themselves to be trustworthy with something that you value, some kind of thing that you cherish. That's how you take advice. You want to build up trust and give people the space to give you advice based on trust, based on developing a relationship. So, yes, and it does also suggest that if there's no compromise, it's going to slow things down. And you know what? One thing I can't stand as a Taurus is when things just slow down. I have a lot of Capricorn in my chart, like I said. So for me, slowing things down just drives me crazy. It pushes me inward, pushes me to reevaluate things, to slow down and to release whatever resistance I have to this slowness. So if you want to let go of this stuff, let go of the fear, let go of the insecurities. Just embrace, sometimes there are situations where you just have to release. And this is talking about that kind of compromise. So now the next thing here we have is October 10th. So in October 10th, Venus is in retrograde. It moves to the 7th house, but this is squares Mars and Aquarius in the 10th house. And at the same time, roughly around the same time, Mercury enters Scorpio. So a lot of funny little lineups here. So it says there's generally like a buildup of energy in workplaces, in your general relationships. The 10th house, by the way, as I understand it, is about long-term relationships. I might be wrong. No, let's see. Long-term relationships. So this is about long-term relationships, not affairs, not short little, fireworks. This is talking about relationships that have to do with community, really long-lasting ones. This could be a long-lasting romantic relationship that you've had, a partnership. This is really about, really honestly, partnerships that you've made with other people. So, a buildup of energy and conflict, potentially, not necessarily conflict, but just, this is always talking about compromise when we get squares. So finding a way to negotiate and compromise so that you can continue to move forward. Build up in work and relationships. All of this kind of inner work that Taurus has been experiencing this year, of which there's been quite a bit, I feel like it has to do with some of the Taurus energy that's been changing lately. I think it started earlier this year. I think I might just make another video about it because I don't want to spend more time. We're getting close to 30 minutes here. So build up in work and relationships. All of this kind of inner work in general that Taurus is having this year is going to be talking about deep discussions. So I feel like this is important now to consider maybe friends that you have that you like to talk about this kind of stuff with, deep discussions, abstract kind of stuff, you know, like what's life, why am I here, you know, even maybe sometimes political discussions that go a little deeper than just the surface, where you're thinking like, how are we going to, you know, move forward and evolve like as humans, and how are we going to save this planet, etc., etc. Having an open mind, it suggests, is really going to help, because there's a process to learning, and it doesn't involve just telling other people what you think. It involves listening, and it involves taking in information in a really objective manner. You don't want to just find somebody that you like and just, you know, repeat everything they say. You want to actually search out conflicting opinions sometimes, not all the time. You don't want to become this person who's like, I must be fair, and you obsess over having like the perfectly fair opinion. But it would be generally smart to, if you want to have a position on anything, that in the moment when you find yourself needing advice, needing more information, to consider more than one perspective. And if you find another perspective that conflicts with the ones that you currently have, consider reading it. Consider opening your mind to the possibility, holding the space for multiple perspectives to have some understanding of the actual truth of what's going on. You want to take a look at it from different angles. So for that, yeah, I feel like this is definitely talking about Mother Earth, maybe just having this big perspective, talking about healing. Sometimes conversations where you have an open mind, conversations where you're talking about deep discussions, philosophical discussions. Sometimes if you hit on the right button, you can have a healing experience. Maybe you can realize, man, you know, in the past I've had a lot of discussions that went sour because of this, because of that, and this conversation went really well, and I just feel really happy with it. I've had those discussions before, and it can be really healing to realize that it's okay to have an open mind when you do it with the right people. It takes trust sometimes. You don't want to go talking about politics and religion with random strangers. You want to understand, is this the kind of person that if I open up about the things that I really value, are they just going to slam me and talk down to me, or are they going to really consider it? You want to do these with the right people. Like I said, you don't want to just get on a podium and just start speeching. Man, it's really interesting. For the Cathar tarot cards that I'm getting nothing but like wisdom and shields. Wisdom, shields. It's so funny. Yeah, it does say, as with this discussion, this philosophy, this is, having an open mind is really, really critical. Tauruses are notorious for being stubborn. I've always personally attributed it to deep-seated passion. And it is important to have a passion. Not to say that it's bad to have a passion, but to have a passion, you must understand that you have a reason for having that passion. That passion is seeking. It's not knowing. It's not acting. It is actually seeking. If you have the passion to seek the truth, to seek a better understanding, to seek connection, then the seeking of it is what you're passionate about. Don't get caught up in thinking that knowing something as a truth is your base ground thing to take action off of. Your passion, I think at the core of it, you must realize, is that if you're on a spiritual path, if you're seeking a deeper understanding of things, that it's the seeking that you must be passionate about. Don't get caught up in constructs that are going to make you feel good or safe just because finally you've had some kind of answer to something. It's the seeking that gives you peace. It's the seeking, knowing that there may not ever be an answer that truly answers everything that you've been looking for. But it's the seeking that gives you the passion, that drives you forward, that gets you to wake up the next day, that helps you to consider having an open mind in discussions, because you really want to seek an understanding. You don't want to just know an answer to everything. Knowledge doesn't really help as much as experience, as much as the seeking of knowledge. You'll find that the more that you know about, the more that you know about things, the more you read books, the more you realize that there's so much more information, so much more knowledge out there, that you'll never be able to spend enough time during your life to learn everything, to learn, even to master any one thing. You'll spend your entire life and never hit the end of knowing more. You know what I mean? So have an open mind and recognize that it's the seeking of the truth that is really what you're passionate about. And this card here suggests uncertainty. Don't be afraid of uncertainty. There will always be some level of mystery in this experience as a human. There's always going to be a level of mystery because there's things that we can't explain using the physical material world. There's other things that we know there's more to, but we can't explain it using our understanding of the physical world. So there's always going to be some mystery. Yeah, and it does also suggest being sensitive to the surrounding cards, so I'll bring those back out, I guess. Saying, just as a reminder, take these things into account, have an open mind, consider what your real passion is. Okay, so the last one here, October 11th, the sun is in Libra in the 6th house. It squares Pluto. So I didn't mention this also before. Since I was born in between 1981 and 1988, it actually turns out that Venus in retrograde is actually passing through the path of Pluto, which is kind of part of, it has to do with my specific birth year. So, and as a result, it's actually got some extra effects here. It actually results in this month being particularly intense in the terms of being kind of like evaporating all the unnecessary fluffy stuff and kind of condensing it down to the bare minimum of I guess you could say like the essence of your understandings and experiences with the heart, and like I said, amplifying, condensing, concentrating, kind of boiling it down to the basics of your relationships, your reptilian brain issues, the ego, and death, sex, finances, taboos, these constructs. It's really trying to boil it all down. What do you really feel? What do you really want to spend your time on? So it squares Pluto. So we have another Pluto thing for me. So it's interesting to see. Philosophy, spiritual path, life lessons, being a student, getting an education. So there's a lot of deep diving emotionally. October 11th. Reevaluations, questioning your actions and the actions of others, and questioning authority. So this is, I feel like, another thing that Tauruses are great at, which is calling, shots as they see them. There's a tendency to kind of get caught up in that as you get confident and recognize, there's some kind of benefit to helping others with knowledge, but getting carried away with it can end up being a little destructive. So, okay. So maybe this has to do with partnerships. I'm going to take a look at this real quick. So, Wisdom and knowing. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just going to read it right out of the book because it's just really perfect. To reclaim your inner knowing, you must see the opportunity in all situations and know that wisdom is earned through both life's easy and difficult experiences. Be willing to listen to others, as well as the small, still voice within. Behave in a manner that honors your path. The proper use of inner knowing comes when you flow with your authentic feelings, embracing all the experiences you encounter in life as learning lessons rather than hardships. Teaches you to see every bend in the river as a new adventure with a lesson you need to learn in order to grow. The knowledge, it helps you to know that knowledge becomes authentic wisdom through applying these truths to your life. So, man, that's a great card to wrap up with. The Six of Wisdom is actually talking about teaching and passing down and like an inheritance of wisdom or knowledge, but it's reversed. So let me see. Yeah, it's saying don't get caught up in jealousy. This is October 11th, like I said. Maybe for some reason there's some kind of conflict with authority figures in your life. Maybe people who constantly are trying to teach you. Now for some reason it really rubs you the wrong way. Make sure that if you are feeling a conflict with somebody that's in an authority over you, that you kind of check yourself in terms of, am I feeling jealousy? What's another one here? Yeah, envy, greed. Are you trying to, take something for yourself? Or is this really something you want to give away? No strings attached, just a gift. And the salmon, I feel like, really kind of hammers that down. There's ups and downs to life. Some people have ups while you're having downs. Some people have downs. You might have ups while other people are having downs. So try and keep a bigger perspective of that and recognize that when you actually apply the knowledge that you have in your brain in a wise way, when you apply it with the appropriate kind of behavior, that is wisdom. Just knowing something is not wisdom. It's the application of it. It's how you live your life. If you take life's lessons, the hard ones and the easy ones, and you actually apply them, that's wisdom. Not just trying to correct people, not just trying to be the smart one, all those things. So the suggestion here is definitely to kind of have some temperance. Recognize that with this square, your compromise is, you have the need to kind of rebel against authority, but it wants you to compromise. There are some areas where you're going to be challenged because if you don't actually make this compromise, you risk a lot of jealousy and envy and greed, which can carry you away. It can damage relationships. If you have a good relationship with an authority figure in your life and you have the wrong kind of attitude when you get into a situation, you can get into discussions where things blow up. You can potentially cause pain for other people. And so just be mindful that if you want to help teach and you want to share knowledge and wisdom, it needs to be coming from the right place, from your heart, as a gift, without any strings attached, just for free, So that wraps it up. The next event doesn't happen until the 19th, so that was for the 11th. So we have 2, 5, 8, 10, and 11. So that's October. So that should get you by till the 19th, which is the next event. I'll be making a video before the 19th to talk about the end of the month. I'm trying to get the hang of this. slowly so I don't jump into too much at one time. I don't know if I'll be adding other signs yet until I've done some more reading on the other signs. I just want to kind of get more familiar with it first. So hopefully this helps you other Taurians, and also if you aren't a Taurian but you wanted to kind of get an understanding of what maybe another Taurus in your life might be experiencing in October. I hope this helps you. Please comment if you really liked what's going on. Go ahead and hit the like button. If you want to hear some more stuff about Tauruses, go ahead and subscribe, because I'm a Taurus. I'm trying to help all you other Tauruses out there. So please also let me know how this went. If you have any feedback, if anything really resonated with you, and you just want to show confirmation, please comment. I also have an email I'm going to write down below, and you can let me know other stuff if you want to do it more privately. So anyways, peace.